welcome to session 4 of Survive and Thrive online private training. We are really glad that you were able to join us today. We've talked in previous sessions about the opportunities that this crisis has presented to dog trainers. And one that I want to look at specifically today is the opportunity to reimagine how we structure our private services. We're going to begin by looking at how we offer our services online, how we structure them, how we price them, and then we'll look at some money matters like discounts and payment options a little later in the discussion. What we won't be getting to is instructional strategies, at least not too much today. We'll circle back to that topic in the future. So look for that in other Survive and Thrive discussions, but we don't have enough time, just pack too much in to get it to that part today. Before we get started, I want to thank you for your participation in the group chats during the discussions, and also for your participation in Survive and Thrive Facebook group. You have given such great inspiration and good ideas and really created a rich conversation. And so we want to encourage you to keep that up to date by continuing to participate in the group chat. We've just heard from your colleagues how valuable that's been for them. So thank you. If any of you are joining for the first time, I'm Gina Ferris, and I am here with Dog Biz founder Veronica Bautel and Dog Biz business consultant Tia Guest. So at different times, we will be on the screen, and other times we'll be backstage in the chat answering questions there. And then it's time for alphabet soup. Before I forget, those of you who need continuing education credits, either for CPDT, IAABC, PPG, or KPA, you'll want to make a note of our secret word. And our secret word today is learning. Learning. And with that, if you'll give me just a minute, I'm going to turn off my video so that you have a cleaner look at the screen here, and I'll share the slides with you. All right, as we dive into taking our services online, there are going to be new things, new decisions, new ways of assessing our progress that we're going to have to make. And as we do that, there are a few of our goals that I want us to keep in mind. Remember, we set these goals at the beginning of the program. Our goals around, making sure that our new services bring in enough revenue to see us through the COVID crisis, but then also that they help us to also emerge from the crisis even stronger than when it began. And finally, and always a priority, is making sure that our services meet the needs of our clients and their dogs. I think that you can use these 3 goals as a bit of a filter as you're making decisions throughout this crisis. You can take a look at the decision or at the option that you're presented with, and just make sure that you're filtering it through these 3 goals. And I think if you do that, you'll find that your decision making becomes much easier. If you just make sure that every decision is providing enough revenue for now, leaving the company in a strong position after the crisis, and also serving your clients well. So with those goals in mind, let's go ahead then and start talking about private training. In our rush to find ways to serve clients and to get revenue coming in, because of course we all feel under pressure to do that, especially right now, I just want us to be careful not to think that we can take our in-person services, our apples, and just plunk them down on an online platform, which is oranges, without doing some translation work. If we don't translate our private training services into this new learning platform, I think we're going to be frustrated. Partly we're going to be frustrated with the results because I don't think they'll be as good for our clients. But it will also probably cause us to make poor decisions when it comes to pricing and packaging our services. So we really have to recognize that this different format forces us to rethink how we do what we do. It's not a direct translation. So we're looking for solutions and translations that allow us to have successful business models, but also set our clients up for success. And in order for that translation to work, it's going to require some out of the box thinking in terms of how we actually structure private training. That 1 hour a week coaching session that we do with private training, where we would go to the client's home, show them how to do stuff, give them some homework, and come back the next week, was never really a great structure from a learning perspective for our clients. And right now, it's probably even less effective when we're taking our services online. So that's really not going to be an option. And of course, day training isn't an option for us either right now. We're going to need to find new ways of structuring our private training work. And as we reach for these new ways of doing things, we should avoid being arbitrary in our decisions, right? But if we're not arbitrary, then, what do we base our new models on? Where do we get our ideas? How do we decide what to try or what to experiment with? And that's what we hope we can help you with today. So let's just take a step back and figure out where we're at and what we have to work with and where we're headed. First, let's take a look at the client experience. What will it be like for our clients to meet with us and to learn in this new way, this online way? How is it going to look different for them? How will looking at a screen change the way that they see a demo that we're doing, for instance? What will be harder to see? What might be easier? What will it feel like to ask questions when they have to interrupt, but there's a delay in the signal? What's that will that prevent them from asking questions they normally would? Also think about what other pressures and realities that they are juggling during this crisis time. They've always had busy households. This is nothing new, but some of these households, the busyness level has it's gone to 11. They're really, really busy because they've got multiple people working from home. Maybe they have kids taking classes at home. Their attention is just kind of all over the place. And for many of us, it's a time where we're just mentally tired more than usual. Just the bombardment of news and keeping up with all the changes means that our memories aren't as good as they used to be, and we're just more tired. And I think that's true for our clients as well. It's going to be really tempting as we start to go to online services, particularly if this is new for us. It's going to be really tempting to step back.
It's always the best feeling.
And to it's going to be really tempting to just fall back on what we know best. And what we know best is how to tell people what we know, right? That's how the education system has taught us to teach. But it's critically important not to backslide into this industry's tendency to mistake talking for teaching. This belief that if we tell people something, maybe give them a training plan, outline a few recommendations, that's enough for them to know how to train their dog. Now more than ever, our clients are going to need more support from us. They're going to need us to support them through the implementation of the training in even greater ways than they did before. Also, think about your own experiences with working online as well. What will it feel like to work this way? Some of you have some anxiety around this. So let's just name it. Like, what are we worried about? What's it going to feel like when we can't take the leash to do a demonstration, or we can't provide an enrichment toy to keep a dog busy so that the client can focus on a discussion with us? What's it going to feel like if we don't have control over the training environment anymore, right? If you're working with shy or fear or reactive dogs, you very often spend a lot of time thinking about setting up just the right training conditions. And we're not going to have that option. We're going to be reliant on what the client gives us. You may or may not have the ability to demonstrate in the moment. If you have a demo dog, you probably can, but some of you don't have demo dogs. So then what? We're going to need to rely on our verbal communication now more than ever. We are so used to demo and practice, right? We show them and then we have them practice. But now we're going to have to really think about, how do we tell people with our words? How do we paint pictures? And I've been telling a story of a high school English assignment that I got. Some of you probably had one similar, where you had to write out the instructions for tying your shoes step by step. And then the teacher would read the instructions out loud and do exactly what you had written. And I just can remember it really vividly, that our teacher didn't get his shoes tied during that class period. No one could do it, because we were so used to being able to use our bodies to show people. So this is not an easy task. We're going to have to polish off those verbal skills and really break things down for our clients better than we've had to do in the past. We might even consider writing client training plans instead of just training plans for the dogs. It is going to be different teaching this way, but it can also be amazing. Just think about how your skills, your teaching skills, could develop by using this new platform for teaching. So yes, it's difficult. The learning curve is there, but there's lots of opportunity for us to become better trainers, better teachers too. Some of you are really loving the online platform. Some of you aren't quite there yet. So hopefully after today, you'll feel a little more comfortable and have some more ideas for how to approach this new platform for training. And that's kind of where I want to start. I want to start with some structure ideas. And just to say that I've put a few on the slide and I'll go over these, but I'm sure you have more. So if you want to share those over in the chat, that would be great. Also to say that just because all of these ideas are on the slide doesn't mean you have to do all of them, right? Some of you will incorporate several, some of you may only use one, but here I just want to get you thinking outside the box about what your private training might look like now that we're doing things online. And one easy one, or the first one that came to my mind when we started changing services over, was this idea of being able to provide shorter sessions, making it easier for client to schedule sessions, making it easier for them to stay engaged. It's much easier to stay engaged for 30 minutes than it is an hour, particularly when you have a lot going on in the background, kids and dogs and other people having meetings. So these shorter sessions might be a way that we can serve our clients even better, and particularly because it might mean that we can meet with them more than once a week. That wasn't always practical when we're driving from house to house, but when we're working online, we can do shorter sessions more frequently, and that allows us to give the training some structure for our clients. It gives us more opportunity for them to be held accountable, give them deadlines, provide greater support. And so I think shorter sessions and multiple sessions per week really go hand in hand to be a really powerful tool that we can use with online training. Also, we can take a look at client video review sessions. And what I mean by this, think about NFL players reviewing football film with their coach. That's kind of what this is like, where you have the client video themselves in short clips, and then together you review what's happening and you provide really focused coaching. This is something we've not taken advantage of very often when we're doing in-person training. And I think, it's just like, I wonder why. This is so valuable, particularly when you're teaching a mechanical skill. If you've been involved in any sports, if you've ever learned a sport, you've probably had a coach give you feedback at some point where you've thought, I thought I was already doing that, right? Like we think we're doing it, but if you go back and look at the video, you realize, oh, I wasn't doing that at all. So we have a chance to bring that to our clients right now. Kind of along those lines, we can do pre-recorded video lessons for our clients, so that when we're working with them kind of live, we're doing more coaching about, fixing or helping shape their behavior, and less about this is how you install a cue, because we've already given them a video lesson on that. and preferably a video lesson that we could use with other clients, not taping one just for each client, but some good lessons that we can reuse over and over again. And then the final structure idea I had on here was this idea of an online task document. And so this could be a Google document. For those of you who've worked with Melina DiMartini in her separation anxiety program, you're probably really familiar with this. This is where you use an online shared document shared between you and the client, where you can break things down. You can break it down as small as daily steps, what you want them to do each day. And then they can give you feedback for what they tried and how that went for them. And you can adjust next steps based on how they did. Again, this touching base with them more frequently builds in accountability. It gives them more support. So that they don't get so far off track in between sessions. So those are some structure ideas. There are also some support perks I wanted to go over. Recording sessions is a big advantage now. If we are working online, if you're using meeting software, then you probably have the ability to record your sessions and make that available to the client so that they can go back and review where they have questions or something that went by too fast. So that's a good tool we have. Some of you are using Facebook groups and you are either teaming up clients that have a particular interest or whose dogs all have a particular behavior challenge. And it's a place for them where they can feel like they're not so alone, and a place where you can offer tips from time to time, kind of, again, that support group for clients. I was just looking in the chat. Joanna says that she uses for those online tasks, those coaching documents, she's using Trello, and several people have mentioned that today. Google Docs, yes, works great as well. And then one last idea for you, if you're doing online private training, is to think about setting your clients up for successful sessions by giving them some checklists, how to prepare for an online session. And on that checklist might be things like what treats they need to have ready. It might be a reminder to make sure that they have the link to the meeting handy, that kind of thing. Just something that they can refer to each time to make sure that they're all set and ready, so that when you get there with them and are coaching, everybody's ready to go. Just taking a quick look, it looks like Trello is the popular online doc sharing right now. Okay, so those are some structure ideas. Now let's take a look at how to package our services.
So I'm going to talk about packaging, and then I'm going to talk about pricing the packages as well. Packaging and pricing are big, complex topics. Not only could we do a whole hour on them, we've literally created an entire Dog Biz University course, the Money Matters course, just on this subject, because there is so much to unpack here. But for today's purposes, we're going to introduce a couple of the points that we think are the most key and the most relevant to this moment, and then share some specific application examples for online private training, so you can sort of start to get a sense of what this might look like. I want to say first, though, just that packages are as important as they've ever been. They're probably even more so now. The notion of a package is essentially, in the old days, it used to be that the vast majority of trainers they'd sell a session, and then they'd ask the client, do you want to keep going? And the client would say yes, and we'd sell another session, and then that one went well, we'd sell another session, and it was session to session to session. And for nearly 20 years, we've been railing against that. No, we've got to put packages together because they're better for business, they're better for clients, they're better for dogs. And so we just want to stop for a minute and just remind us why this is so important. If our goal is results, if our goal is to change the relationship, improve it between the dog and the human by changing dog behavior and giving clients the skill sets and the understanding that they need, it is so tremendously important that we give ourselves enough time to reach those goals that we have, enough time to create results, enough time to give ourselves and the clients a really good run at meeting their goals. It's also really important for the income for your business, right? One of the things that is so important to us as business coaches is that you actually make a living while you're making change in dogs' lives. And so your income is going to be much better if each of your clients is committing to a package, as opposed to you having, being stuck in this constant rat race of trying to sell the next session and sell the next session. We've come a long way in the industry about that. I mean, most trainers these days operate on packages, and we just want to remind you about that. Don't slide back, right? We want to make sure that we don't accidentally, in the stress of this moment, slide back into bad habits from the past. So something to think about there. And as we think about packages, one of the key points is that we make them big enough to get the job done. When we undersell, when we sell fewer sessions, when we sell less time than we should, that means that we're doing a disservice to the client and the dog, that we're underserving them. There are real risks here. When we don't sell enough training, we risk the clients blaming you or your business for the lack of results. We risk them blaming methodology. Oh, I tried that cookie slinging stuff, it didn't work, so I'm going to go try something else. We don't want to see that happen. And we also risk them blaming the dog. I spent money and time and I hired a dog trainer and my dog is still doing this or not doing that. We don't want to run the risk of harming the relationship between the dog and the client. We're trying to improve it. So we need to make sure that we stand in a really professional space about selling the amount of training that we really feel is necessary to give ourselves the best chance of getting the job done. So that's something to really be thinking about here, is we're not going to make the mistake of settling back into the whole talk at you, big giant initial consult, talk, and then leave the trainer or leave the client to it, or just one or two sessions and then let them take a walk, because the reality is that talking at people does not turn them into trainers. You guys have worked for a really long time to develop your knowledge and skill set. We need to have enough time with the client to transfer the pieces of that they need to be successful. And see, a lot of you are asking about package size and things like that. Don't you worry, I'm going to get to that. In fact, in just a moment, I'm going to show you a couple of package examples. And then after that, I'm going to talk about ways to think about sizing your packages. I want you to please note the word example. To note the word example. There are so many possible ways to arrange your services. And I don't want you to feel limited by the couple of ideas we show you here. What I'm doing with these examples is just giving you an idea of the different ways you can combine and play with some of the structural elements that Gina was sharing earlier. But your packages may look completely different. So please use these as inspiration. Don't feel like that you have to follow them specifically. Okay, so let's take a look at one example. You're still going to be doing your initial goal, your initial consult, right? You're going in, you're assessing what's going on with the dog and the client, coming to understand what their goals are, helping them to adjust those if they're needed, figuring out what your training plan is. You're still doing that. And some of you will do the initial consult and then sell the package. Some of you will sell the package with the initial consult in it. There are pros and cons there, and whichever of those works best for you is absolutely fine. They both have their advantages. But we do the initial consult, and then we're looking at, okay, what does the package look like then? It's some number of weeks. And again, in a couple of minutes, I'll talk about how do you figure that part out. But it's some number of weeks. And in each of the weeks, something's going to happen. What's happening in each of those weeks? How does that look? In this case, in this example, we're doing 3 live touch points with the client each week, 2 30-minute coaching sessions and 1 30-minute live video review session. So the client, we're doing some coaching, they're doing their homework, they're grabbing some video of themselves, sharing it with you, and then we're taking a look at that video and together looking at it with the client. Hey, oh gosh, right there, that was a great moment. Your timing was perfect in that reinforcer. Oh, look right here, this was another opportunity to let Harvey know we really like it when he does this instead of that. You're really kind of playing and unpacking that together, giving that kind of feedback. In this particular example also, we're including the task training list, the Google Doc or the Trello, however you're doing that, sharing with clients the specific tasks for the day. And in this package, it's going to be Monday through Friday that's happening. And then there are the additional perks that are coming along in this package: the free tech setup session, sharing session recordings with the client, and doing a Facebook group. Now, again, you don't have to do any of these things, right? This is just an example of what one package might look like. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at a second package example, just to give you, a different view. In this second package example, this is a little bit of a simpler approach. This might be good, for example, for like basic manners. Again, we've got the initial consult, we've got some number of weeks. But in this one, each week consists of pre-recorded video lessons. So you've created some video that's being sent over to the client. They're getting to review that ahead of time, do some homework based on that. And then we're doing 2 30-minute coaching sessions, Q&A around the video, and live interaction, feedback and whatnot. And then in this particular case, rather than the task sheets, you might do periodic throughout the week, just a quick email or text touch base, which is a little homework reminder. Don't forget, you're working on this, a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of, keep going. And then we can also still have those same kind of perk elements: the tech setup session, the session recordings, the Facebook group. And again, you don't have to do those things, but they can absolutely be in there. So just a couple of different kind of looks at this to get a sense of what different packages could be. Now, having looked at that, I'm going to talk a little bit next about sort of the package size then, kind of how do we figure that out. So here's a few ideas about how to put packages together, but then great, but how many weeks? And the answer in some ways is simple enough to get the job done, and don't ever offer clients options you don't want them to pick. The idea here is that you want to make sure that it's enough time that you and the client are set up for success. Now, in thinking about that, if you're saying, yeah, okay, that's great, but give me a number, in our day training work, when we're coaching trainers how to use day training, we generally say, don't sell fewer than 3 weeks. And that's our general advice here too. Don't sell fewer than 3 weeks for the vast majority of things. You want enough time to establish relationship, to get some skills building, to see support through so that behaviors are starting to get proofed and the client's skills are solidifying. You want enough time to make enough progress that you're not going to see slide back when the relationship ends. Now, it doesn't mean that it has to be only 3 weeks, just saying let's not do less than that. In terms of thinking about putting packages together, you for things like basic manners and puppy training, you can offer a couple sizes of package for clients to choose from. You might offer them 3 or 4 weeks, for example, or 3 or 6 weeks, etc. And the idea here is that giving clients a little bit of choice, that larger package often helps the price tag on the smaller package look more appealing. The idea, though, is that that smaller package, that's the one that you have to recognize most people are going to choose. So you want to make sure that that's designed. You're basically saying, this is what I think people should do. I'm going to create a larger package for people who want more support, and also to help people feel more comfortable choosing the smaller one, right? When we make a purchase, we often like to rationalize it to ourselves in some way. And sometimes being able to say, well, I'm splurging a little bit here, but I'm not going for the big one, helps us feel more comfortable saying yes to the small one. So yeah, exactly what Denise is saying, that positive contrast on a smaller package. So you can do that sort of thing. You can, when you're thinking about these set packages, these preset packages, you also want to think about things like your behavior. So if you're doing behavior work, you might have a package for each type of issue, an aggression package, a leash reactivity package, a kids and dogs package, etc. In this case, most of the time we don't usually suggest doing multiple sizes in that case. What you're really trying to say with these kinds of behavior packages are, I see you. I understand the issue you have, and I've created a package specifically to address that. I have a solution for you, so that you're really kind of engendering confidence in the client that this is how we this is how we can do it. Doesn't mean you can't do a couple of different sizes, but again, just making sure that that smaller package is really going to address the needs of the vast majority of the types of cases you see in that particular topic area. So just a few ways of thinking about that. One last one is that you can also customize your packages to your client's goals. You do your initial consult, get the lay of the land, understand what needs to happen, and you say, based on that, this is the package that I'm customizing for you specifically, personalizing it to a particular client. If you've got enough experience to feel confident doing that and selling it, that can be a really powerful way to go as well. So just a little bit of an introduction thinking about how to size packages. And I hope that's helpful, kind of getting things underway for you.
Veronica,
Okay.
before you move on, there was just a point that Denise made in the chat that I thought was worth noting, and she was just saying that if there are too many packages or too much information, the examples we gave had lots of information in them, that it can be overwhelming when people are visiting the website. And so just a reminder that we're thinking about everything that goes into a package, and you're going to see in a minute why, because it affects your pricing, but you do want to keep those packages simple, scannable, really easy to read on your website. It was a good point.
Yep. It can be really nice to just sort of bullet point it, for example, and that's part of why you don't want to offer too many different package choices either, because it also gets overwhelming. One of the things I really like to see trainers do who do a lot of different behavior work and things like that is consider having a different page on your website for each type of issue, so that I'm only looking at the package, the one or two packages that are specific to the need that I have. And that really helps things to keep from becoming visually overwhelming, and also just, so much information that you end up with decision paralysis. Yeah, it's a great point. Okay. So I'm going to talk about pricing online private training now. And just a reminder of what Tia said at the beginning, just reminding you all that because of price fixing laws, it's not legal for us to discuss specific prices, your own specific prices. And so please don't do that in the chat pod or in the Facebook group. I'm going to be sharing some examples with you in a moment. And when I do, just recognizing that those numbers are just generic numbers for math purposes to show you how we go about pricing something. And so that's just asking you to remember not to share specific numbers. So one of the main points that we want to make about pricing online private training, pricing anything, is that underpricing carries real risk, right? We just want to remind you again that it's it doesn't do you any good to underprice your services. Remember that first goal we have for you in this program, which is getting you through this financially, right? Just getting your business through this crisis. It's not going to help you if you start getting clients, but you are pricing yourself so low that the money you're making isn't putting food on the table or covering your rent or mortgage. So there's that piece. But there's also the risks inherent in undervaluing the service itself. We've talked a lot the last couple of weeks about the challenge of convincing people that online training carries value, that it can be as effective and purposeful as in-person training. We undermine those messages if we put a cheap price tag on it. We have to remember that rates are part of our marketing message, and they say something to people about the value of the service. And then also looking forward to emerging from this strong down the line, if you are thinking that you might end up keeping some of your online services later, either doing that exclusively or doing a mix of online and in person, we run the risk of making it difficult to convince people of the value of that later if we've undervalued it now. And so just being really careful about that. And I see a question from Cindy about, I just happened to glance up about pricing the initial consult. We do recommend that you charge for the initial consult. And generally, we actually recommend pricing it higher. One, because it tends to take a lot of work and prep, but also because you, one of the ways you're successful in business is selling to a warm audience, selling to an audience that can and is willing to pay for your services. If you bring somebody in on the cheap for your initial consult, you run the risk of bringing people in who are only doing training if it's inexpensive, which means they're not going to be good candidates to sell a package to. Whereas someone who's willing to pay for the initial consult, who has said, yes, I value your expertise and I understand that it's worth paying for, they are more likely to convert for you into packages. So that's something to think about as well. Okay. So the other thing I just want to remind you about is no guilt. No guilt about charging for your paid services. You are running a business. That's what businesses do. You can use your content marketing to serve those who cannot pay. We talked about that in the last session. You can go back and review session 3 recordings if you need a little bit of inspiration about that community marketing and education point. But when it comes time for your paid services, these you want to make sure that you are paid a professional fee for. All right, so I am now going to share with you a private training pricing example. I want you to remember, again, it's just an example, and the numbers in here, we've chosen these numbers for simplicity of math and just explaining how we're going about these numbers. We're not saying that this is what you should specifically charge. And the idea here is that your starting point is looking at the amount of time that each of the elements in your package will take, each of those structural elements that Gina talked about earlier. What are the elements in my package? How much time are they going to take me each week? Multiply that by my hourly rate, multiply that by the number of weeks in my package, and I get a number to start with. So again, just an example, let me walk you through it. So let's say that in this case, you're doing two live 30-minute coaching sessions per week. So that comes to an hour per week. You're doing a 30-minute video review session as well. So that comes to 30 minutes per week. You're also, in this particular package, doing your training task lists Monday through Thursday, and you've determined that they're going to take you 15 minutes a day per client. So that adds up to an hour. When we pull all that together, we have 2.5 hours. I use the rate 100 because it's simple math. So that's just an arbitrary number there. 2.5 hours times 100 is 250 a week. If it's a 3-week program, that comes out to 750. That's how we're doing the base math. It is base math. So a couple of things here. You don't have to stop here. If you and I were working together one-on-one doing consulting, what I would be saying to you is don't charge anything less than $750 for this package. Don't go anything less than that. But you might want to go higher because there's some considerations here. I mean, first of all, you may decide that, okay, great, I'm doing a 30-minute review session, but I'm going to be reviewing that ahead of time and getting ready for that. It's going to take me an hour total between the prep time and the time I spend with the client. So I'm going to up that to an hour. You might even decide that about the 30-minute coaching sessions too. And we've heard that from a few people in the chat pod in earlier sessions today, that they're still pricing their 30-minute coaching sessions at an hour because they're factoring in the prep time and whatnot. And that is perfectly reasonable to do. You may look at the task training list and decide that's going to take you longer than 15 minutes a day. So you may have adjustments there as well. Also don't forget, things like the Facebook. If you're doing a Facebook group, it's going to take some time to administrate that. It's going to take some time to be in there and be present and be answering questions and providing cheerleading and whatnot. And you may want to be compensated for that. Maybe you're including a booklet that you've written or training tools that you give your clients and you want to be compensated for those. This hourly computation that I've shown you here in the example, it gives you a base guideline to work from, and it's okay to adjust up from there. Remember that clients aren't paying you specifically for your time. They're paying for your expertise and its benefits. They're paying for access to your knowledge and skill set and the outcomes that it can bring them. And so it's not, that's really where the value is. It's not just specifically in your time. And also remember, clients aren't privy to these computations. You don't have to say to a client, well, it's a 30-minute coaching session, but I'm actually charging an hour. Like all of this is behind the scenes. Clients don't even need to know what your hourly rate is. right? This is just a way for you to come up with how you're going to get at your, at your rate. It's a sort of a starting point to run these numbers and then kind of adjust from there. In terms, Jill's asking about discounts for prepaid packages. I'm going to get to that prepaid question in a moment. I wouldn't discount for that because I would just require that clients are committing up front. So we'll get to that in a moment. And in terms of package discounts, yes, you can do that. In fact, we're going to talk about discounts right now. You can do discounts for your packages, but the idea when you do that, it's really important that you think about what is the hourly rate you want to make? I mean, what do you want to bring in? And so just as an example, if you want to make $100 an hour, then if you're going to discount your packages by $10, per hour, then that means that your rate needs to be 110, right? So that when you go down, you're still making what you mean to make. When you ask about questions like discounts and that sort of thing, the question that we're going to ask back is, what is your goal? I mean, what is the purpose of the discount? In the abstract, the purpose of the discount is to make money you wouldn't otherwise make. And so you have to think about that. Like, is your discount designed to make that happen? It's okay to use a small discount to entice people to try something, but you don't want to that's different from setting a regular low price. So you could say, for example, for a really short period of time, that you're going, this is what your online training usually costs. For the short period of time, you're offering the small discount as an incentive for you to try out this really powerful way of training your dog. But you want to make sure that people know what the regular rate is so that you're not undermining the value of the service. You can also do things like offering a test drive session rather than a discount. We're recommending that really specifically for current and past clients, just to entice them to try this new thing instead of waiting until after the pandemic. We're not really recommending test drive sessions for new clients because it mucks up the onboarding process, and we're worried about you ending up doing a lot of free work that you don't end up compensated for. So that's something mostly for current and past clients. When you ask whether to price online training the same as in-person training, again, we ask, what is your goal? Do you want people to see online and in-person training as having the same value? Then they probably ought to have the same price. If you want people to see one is more valuable than the other, then you're going to adjust your pricing that way, right? Looking forward to the future, if you're thinking that you are going to offer both in-person and online after the pandemic's over, and you're trying to nudge people to use one over the other, you're trying to entice them into, you really rather people go with your in-person, or you'd actually really rather them choose online, then it might be that the one you want to entice them toward is priced a little bit lower. If you price it too much lower, you're saying it's not as valuable, and so you'll have a lot of people not choose it for that reason. So you have to be a little bit careful and strategic there. So just a few ideas, a few things to be thinking about when you're looking at pricing and discounts and whatnot.
Veronica, before you go on, I think there's a good question that really applies to virtual services in particular, because Carol was asking, her rates in her area might be much higher than rates in someone else's area, but since we're all online, what do you do with your pricing? And I think, just like we have talked about this before, but maybe talking a little bit more about how, or revisiting how we're still marketing to the same clientele.
Yeah, it's a great question. The vast majority of you are still going to be primarily marketing to your local audiences. So unless you are really investing in, in aggressive search engine optimization and things like that, you're going to find it, even though technically anywhere, your marketing is not likely to be set up to draw from a wider area. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're really serious about drawing from a wider area and investing in the search engine optimization and other kinds of marketing that need to be done to put yourself in front of a wider audience, my very brief advice there, and again, this is just such a huge topic, pricing, so we did a whole course on it, but my general advice is be expensive. If you mean to be the one to go to, if you're trying to gather a really wide audience, we'll tell you over and over and over again, the more expensive you are, the more attractive you are to a wider audience. Always the more expensive trainer is going to have the longest wait list. And so that's just a general piece of advice there. Is there anything you want to add to that, Gina?
Nope, you got it.
Okay, super. So I'm going to run you through really quickly just some brief logistics. I'm going to do it quickly, so I just want to give you some space to start from here, but also want to make sure that I'm leaving some time to touch base a little bit about the content of your private training. The first thing we're going to look at in logistics and policies is payment. I had mentioned earlier we're going to hit that. The first thing we want to say is prepayment. We've always said this, it doesn't change now, that we want to see you asking clients, requiring clients to prepay for at least the initial consult, so that if you're packaging your consult and your package together and requiring people to commit to the whole thing up front, then it's the whole thing. Otherwise, you're first asking people to pay for the initial consult. And then once they've done that, if they decide that they're going to stay with you and they decide to join you for a package, then they commit up front to that entire package. We're not doing the session to session to session because we don't want to set people up for the failure of quitting too soon. So in that case, though, people are saying, through your contract, yes, I'm committing to this. They may not be able to pay for the whole thing up front. We've always suggested, and I think it's particularly important now, to offer payment plans so people can say yes. And then in terms of taking payments, both whether it's all up front or whether it's via payment plan, there are a lot of options out there. PayPal is the most ubiquitous, but it is off-putting to some clients. There are plenty of other options: Square and Apple Pay, etc. Zelle, which is a direct deposit to your business bank account. Venmo is very popular. Just keep in mind with Venmo that you have to set up a business account in order to legally accept money for a paid service. You can't use the free version of that. You can have software built into your site, which is really kind of the most professional way to go here. Those of you teaching classes most likely have already done this, but you can also do it for private trainings. There's a lot of software that combines client management and scheduling and billing. DogBiz Pro, not related to us, but DogBiz Pro is software specifically for dog trainers. We've also seen a lot of folks use and like a program called Pocket Suite. There are bigger programs like Acuity. I think there's tons, and you may have ones that you like the most, and you might want to share them in the chat pod. One of the things we've seen a lot in previous sessions today, a lot of people are saying they really like Acuity and Square together, and there's lots of different options. And PayPal is off-putting to some clients because some people don't want to have a PayPal account, and so they'll just decide they don't want to do it because they're not willing to set up an account. So just to be aware of that. So these kinds of software like DogBiz Pro, they often give people the option of PayPal or just using a credit card. But the idea here, again, is that you want to be set up to take these payments. And so, for example, if you and a client decide, okay, we're committing to a 4-week package, and we're splitting the payments up over 4 months, this software, you want a software option. You want it built in so that you can just run those payments automatically. You don't want to have to be hunting people down, invoicing them and chasing down payments. You can, if you prefer an analog solution, go with the mailed check, of course. It's limiting because you have to wait for it, which mucks up your scheduling a bit and can be really difficult in terms of handling payment plans. It's just a little bit riskier and more work to do that way. Okay. So the other pragmatic piece we want to talk about really briefly here are contracts and cancellations. Just as with your in-person training, you should be using a contract / service agreement / waiver, whatever language you use for it. You can use the one you've always been using. You might, though, also want to add on a video waiver so that you have permission to record the sessions for the client's use, and also give them an option for giving you permission to use those recordings for educational or marketing purposes for yourself as well. In terms of getting contracts signed, there's a lot of software out there that does this. DocuSign's the most well-known and popular. It is a little bit on the expensive side, though. There are other programs that work in similar ways, like EverSign, that are a little bit less expensive. A lot of these programs there's a certain amount you can use them for free, and then when you need to use it more than that, then you begin to pay, and so you can kind of try them out, see what you like. You also, if you need a quicker solution as you're getting underway, you can always do things like emailing your contract, having clients print and sign and scan it, send it back, or having them agree to your contract in an email thread. It's just that if you're really going to be doing a lot of this, we kind of recommend looking into contract software, just because you're going to have that's going to be most enforceable. That's much more kind of a tried and true a way to do this. So just some things to think about there. In terms of cancellations, we recommend the same cancellation policy we've always recommended, which is that you don't allow them. We all know as trainers that one of the keys to training success is consistency. You are hopefully designing your packages with deliberateness. You've decided on the amount of time and the number of sessions and all the different pieces you want in there for a reason. It wasn't arbitrary. You're trying to set yourself and the client and the dog up for the best chance of success. And so we don't want to say this is what we need to give ourselves the best chance of reaching your goals, and then say, oh, it's okay if you put it off or you cancel. It's not good for your business either. You lose money that way. You lose time. It mucks with your schedule. It means that other people aren't getting help from you. And so we do recommend communicating to clients a strict cancellation policy, and the reason for that being that you are trying to set them up for success and protect their success. The thing is, though, of course, you're probably going to be a little bit more flexible right now because of the pandemic. People are ill. If they've had a reduction in hours, if there's other sort of crises going on in the household, you probably be a little bit more flexible than you normally would. Okay, so just a few things there. And now I'm going to hand things back over to Gina to talk to us a little bit about private training content issues as well.
Yeah, so we've looked at some of the practical, pragmatic issues of moving our private training services online. Now let's turn our attention for just a few minutes here on how we spend our time with our clients during training sessions. And as I mentioned before, we're running short on time, so there won't be a lot about instructional strategies today, but there are just a few tips that I could not resist giving you. I suppose this is me climbing up on a soapbox, but here we go. And the first is less is more. This should be your mantra. If it's not now, I hope it is by the time you're done listening to this conversation. We try to pack too much in often. So what I'm saying here is fewer cues. More than ever, our clients are juggling so much and they're overwhelmed. And when we give them 12 cues when 1 or 2 would do, we're doing them a disservice. So instead, I think if we install a small number of very well-proofed behaviors that the dog can just do anywhere under any circumstance, we're going to find that that's much better than teaching 14 behaviors that aren't well proofed or aren't that strong. So let's start thinking about depth instead of breadth. I think that's always important, but it's extra important now. Remember that as trainers, we like to teach new behaviors. It's really reinforcing to us to say a cue and have a dog respond. And so it's a lot of fun to do. But the truth of the matter is where our clients need the most support is in the proofing and the generalization. And if we don't do that with our online clients, I think we could end up with some very poor results. So let's not muddy the waters. Let's keep it simple and remember that for them, less is more. And I was just kind of likening this to us learning tech. If you're learning some new technology right now, just put yourself in the place of knowing what it feels like when you get bombarded with 5 different tech solutions to a problem that you're having. What does that feel like for you? What is the visceral reaction you have? I know for me, I almost put my hands up and say, just stop, just a minute. Our clients are feeling that way too right now. So let's not bombard them with too many cues. And let's try to do a little less in our sessions. Let's focus maybe on one cue per session instead of 3. And let's spend that time teaching clients all the different ways they can use the cue and how to get it in all different kinds of situations. Even better, maybe you focus on one skill, one client skill a session. Maybe you do one session that is just focused on criteria setting and teaching them how to criteria set. We have a client in an earlier session, Kelly Fahey, who's doing puppy work right now, and she's broken up her packages into 30-minute sessions that she meets with the client 3 times a week. And she's dedicating each session to a different goal. So for example, one might be problem solving, another session might be dedicated to socialization, one might be dedicated to solving problems and prevention topics, so that again, just helping the client to stay focused on what really needs to be done, one common thing each time. And I think that we'll find that our clients are more successful when we back off and ask them to focus instead of keeping their attention on several things at once. I don't know about you, but I may have said earlier, I'm having memory problems right now because information is coming at me so fast. And so less is better. And then along with that, let's get focused on training the client. Dog Biz has always said this. If you have any of our class curriculum packages, you've seen it there. We talk about it when we talk about day training. It's the whole point of coming up with day training was this idea that trainers train the dog so that they can focus their time with the client on what the client needs to learn. And right now, I think training the client is a big buzz phrase. We hear it all the time, train people, not dogs. But then when we look at what trainers are actually doing, they're not putting that into practice. We say it, but then we proceed to focus on the training plan for the dog. Well, now we can't get our hands on the dog, so we're not going to be able to do that. We're really going to have to shift to creating human training plans. We have to shift our focus to teaching the people, to coaching them how to shape behavior rather than training the dog. If you're doing tag teach, what is the tag point, for instance? And I wasn't kidding earlier when I said that you may find yourself writing out training plans for the client. What would that look like? What are the tag points? What's the criteria for the human? Just imagine if we spent as much time thinking about our criteria steps for our human learners as we do for our dog learners. Can you imagine what we could accomplish? I'm willing to bet that the dogs will get trained if we do a good job of training the people. And so let's just spend some time thinking, what does the human need to know and be able to do so that I can help them reach their training goal? What are the steps in the training plan for the human that need to be there in order to make this happen? So let's get our focus on people, because if we don't, we're going to have a hard time having effective services online. It's really important, more important now than ever, that we do this. And then just a few considerations, giving the moment in which we live. It's always important in our sessions to talk about management. Understand that your clients may be relying on management more than training right now. If they're a first responder or they have kids at home that they're trying to balance their work and the kids' school work, there may not be a lot of time for training. And in that case, let's help them by making sure we've got really good management plans. And then along with that we have good enrichment plans too. They are going to need us to help them be more creative in figuring out how to exercise their dogs, how to keep them mentally stimulated, how to prevent boredom. That's where we come in. We're going to be able to help them think outside the box in those areas. And then the last thing I think we should all be adding to our packages is prevention. This is like puppy training. Again, people come to us for puppy training because they want their puppy to have better house training skills, or because they want to get rid of puppy biting. But then we as trainers have our own agenda, right? And our agenda is usually socialization. And so we slide that in to all of our puppy work. I think the same needs to happen with this prevention category. How do we prevent problems from popping up when dogs are spending too much time at home and inside? And then also, how are we going to prepare our clients and their dogs for when clients go back to work? We need to make sure that we're getting them ready for that right now, making sure they're prepared. So those are just a few things to go through quickly with you when you're thinking about your sessions with your clients, some things I hope that you'll keep in mind. But then we have a question for you.
So as Gina said before, one of the things that we're really looking at in terms of gauging our own success with you in this process is, are we giving you things that you can take away and do? Are we giving you, really actionable steps to take? We want to make sure that we really love the time with you. We want to make sure, though, that the time is doing something for you, that it's allowing you to take action. And so our question for you today is, what adjustments will you make to your private training for a successful translation? What are the things that the tweaks you're going to make and whatnot to help yourself out here? Keeping it simple, Jan says. I love that. Adding in a waiver. Less is more, Terry says. Yes, I love that. Virginia says we confirmed her leaning toward 30-minute sessions. Terrific. Wonderful. Lisa's going to simplify. Joanna says her website's better already. I love that. Fantastic. Online consults are going better than she thought. Oh, love it, love it. So shortening sessions, Stacy's looking at. Training plan for the owner, Pamela says, love that. Less is more, Amy. Yeah. And Steph too on the less is more. I love it. Carol, I love that. Be more patient. Yeah, we all need to remember that one right now, don't we? For ourselves and for others. Wonderful. So lots of more 30 shorter sessions. Tag teach the client, Lynn says. Fantastic. Great. So I'm so glad to see that, and just making sure that when you leave us each time, that you sit down and take a moment to think, okay, what am I doing next, so that we continue to move forward. And speaking of moving forward, I owe you a second secret word today to perk those ears up. Your second secret word is curve. Curve, like the curves and that road. I chose this word because on Tuesday, Jennifer Moss Logan said in the chat pod, said something that just really stood out for me. And that was, we ask our clients to get on a learning curve to train their dogs. And now it's our turn. Whew, boy, is it our turn. Not just one, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel like we're on several learning curves all at the same time. But here's the really cool thing about being on this curve together, is that we are on it together, right? All of us. And so just really want to thank you guys again for doing that, for joining together. I mean, how much harder this would be if we were all doing it individually, right? That your generosity in the chat pod, sharing with each other, and on the Facebook group sharing with each other is so powerful, that we're going to be able to do this because we're on this learning curve together. Robert said something on Tuesday too in one of the chat pods, that he's been pleasantly surprised with virtual lessons and that it's challenged him and forced him to grow. And I think that that's the lemonade, that's the silver lining. Gina was talking about it earlier. We have an opportunity to come out of this being better coaches, better trainers, better teachers. And it's not that this is a great time to be on a learning curve. It really isn't, right? We're all a little brain fog and stressed, whatnot. But here we are, and how wonderful to seize that opportunity, come out of it stronger than we went in. I think cultivating these sorts of perspectives, taking these kinds of words to heart, and the support that you're all giving each other, we're going to emerge from this moment stronger. And it's incredible for us. We feel so grateful to be part of that process with you. So before we wrap, Gina's got a few programming notes to share with you. And then we'll let you off the hook for the day.
Yeah. So some of you have been asking for some tech help. And so we're going to give that to you on Friday. That's, I think, tomorrow. I don't know what day of the week it is. Friday the 24th at 9 a.m. Pacific and at noon Eastern. All the basics from getting video to meeting platforms to simple editing software. If any of those things are new to you, then that might be a good session for you. A reminder that Tuesday, we're here at the usual time. We'll be talking about online classes. And then Monday, April 27th, for those of you who wanted a session just on kind of a tutorial on Zoom, Aretha Bloom will be here and we'll be walking you through just, the basic setting up Zoom classes and recording and that kind of stuff. So also, though, we have a new bonus session to tell you about. I almost forgot. Marie Policino of Dollars and Cents will be here on Thursday, April the 30th, and the times are there on your screen. She is a CPA who has a specialty in dog businesses and is going to help walk through some of the financial packages and aid and stuff that's out there. So a good one to tune into. Lots coming up, so keep an eye out on your email because all these details and links will be there. You can follow the Dog Biz YouTube channel, and if you subscribe to it, you'll get quick notifications every time we put up a new recording. And also, if you're not already in the Survive and Thrive Facebook group, be sure to check that out. We also put posts about new things that are coming up in there. And again, thank you for all of your participation, both in the Facebook group and in these sessions. It's been invaluable. We've been hearing from your colleagues about how helpful it's been. So thank you all, and we will see you, if not Friday, next week.
And if you have time questions, that just check your emails. And there's also, just real quickly, there's been a question about whether you need to attend the bonus sessions for CEUs. No, you do not.
Okay, we'll
all right. Take care, everyone.
see you all soon.